Hi, I'm Angela Ryder. Thanks for joining me. Today, I want to share something from my own experience about what can happen when guidance or energy arrives in a form that you didn't ask for, didn't want, and maybe you actively resisted for a long time. I'm going to use some of my own experiences with animal energies to illustrate this because, one, they're vivid, and because the overall path from resistance to integration is one that people experience in their own ways. And I'm going to start with a story about the snake that I spent about 20 years trying to get rid of. So, for decades, snakes kept showing up in my dreams. There were various scenarios from them chasing me, trying to bite me, or get close to me. One time, someone even handed me a bouquet of snakes, and of course, I declined the Medusa bouquet. But curiously, in those dreams, I wasn't afraid of the snakes. I was just like more annoyed that I had to deal with them. Because who wants snakes? It's like I would deal with them easy enough in the dream, get rid of them, and then go on about my business in the dream. But they kept coming back. And when I first started doing this psychic work and getting exposed to exploring lore about different things, I had learned that the snake energy, through tarot symbology and other ways, snakes show up as powerful and regenerative, like across many different traditions. So then I came to start to relate to snake with shedding old energies, healing, and transformation. So I started considering that maybe they were trying to share something with me rather than just being a recurring nuisance. Maybe there was something that I needed to look at. And then that coincided with maybe 10 years ago, I had the last big snake dream. I was in a large stone room, torches on the wall. It was a very moody vibe. And I noticed a very large snake started to rise up from across the room and was slowly moving towards me. I went for the exit to get out, but the door was gone. So I grabbed sort of like what was a shield off the wall, and I was going to try to figure out my options, how I could take the snake. But the snake kept coming at me, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. And by the time it reached me, it was large enough to swallow me whole. And at that point in my dream, I lucidly thought, damn it, I might as well just get this over with. So I just stopped resisting. The snake swallowed me and then was assimilated into me. And as I was waking up from my lucid dream, I said to myself, I guess I have snake woman energy now. I wasn't that thrilled with it, but there was some kind of relief with it. But since then, that energy of being able to shed and heal and transform and go through regeneration has been more consciously available to me. It's not something I have to perform or identify with. I don't walk around going snake lady here. It's just something I can access when it's relevant. And looking back at my life, those themes have always been present anyway. So, maybe the snake was just trying to finally make me aware that that is part of who I am, is being able to shed, heal, transform, and regenerate. Then, some people aren't into bees, but I love bees. And bees arrived in my dreams not long after the snake situation was resolved. And, I love bees, so I was always happy to see them, but they hadn't shown up in dreams before. So in that dream, I opened my car and it was filled with thousands of bees. Then they just poured out and swarmed around me until it was all just this big buzzing energy. And then I heard in a very bee-like voice, "We're here for you, let us in," which kind of in the dream made me laugh. But that was very different energy from the snake energy. Snake energy felt like I was being pursued and that I had to finally surrender out of sheer resignation. after decades of resistance. But like the bees had a different energy. They asked, and there was something about the clear asking and an intention that made it easy for me to say yes. So I just opened my mouth and they spiraled in like swifts going down a chimney at dusk. So now I sense bees like they inhabit my nervous system and brain. Like they collect knowledge and wisdom and vibrations and frequencies, and they help connect me to what I need to know, particularly around energies. And I do notice the most when I'm doing energy work or collecting insight during a session. I feel that buzzy feeling. And so this last one is like, okay, I resisted something and then I surrendered. And then the next one, I was invited and I accepted. This third one was not my favorite. If there is something that I wanted no part of, it would be spiders. For me, it's spiders. Nope, don't want anything to do with those. But spider energy had kept showing up in my awareness. So, I was thinking, okay, well, I've done the snake and bee thing. So I decided, well, maybe I can negotiate with spider and try to accept it on my own terms instead of resisting or just accepting that they were going to be there. So I kind of said, okay, I accept the gifts of storytelling and connections, but I don't want any of that energy inside of me. It inhabits me anyway. It inhabits my throat. So I try not to think much about it, and I've kind of made my peace with it, kind of like the peace that I've made with the house spiders that I live with. Then, and then after snake, bee, and spider had all arrived in their various ways, I noticed something that I hadn't consciously registered while it was happening at the time. It took a little while for me to see this, but all three of those creatures are capable of biting or stinging. And in various mythological traditions and cultures, that's kind of the point. The venom isn't incidental. It has a purpose and it's a mechanism for a transformation. Because what could harm you is also what changes you if you survive it and let it integrate rather than just getting through it. So like the bite or sting or swallowing is an initiation, and the transformation is on the other side of it. Like what is available now, or who are you now that you've looked at these and received these? I didn't end up with any kind of snakes, bee, or spider woman superpowers, but I have been changed in the way I look at things that I'm resisting, or invitations that come to me, or the ways I have discernment about whether or not I will engage in something that keeps coming into my purview. So I don't think that pattern was accidental. These were things that I would have resisted had I not been allowing myself to experience them, and experiencing them, understanding some of the consequences that could come, also carried significant gifts. And those gifts of wisdom, connection, storytelling, transformation. So when we look at this as a big arc, I kind of label it as, there's resistance and negotiation, acceptance and integration. But resistance is usually our first response when something arrives uninvited. It's not wrong, but our discernment matters, and not everything that shows up for us or you is worth integrating. Sometimes things give us an adverse reaction because it's not for us. But if the resistance goes on for years while the same thing keeps showing up in different forms, it's worth looking at. At some point, we need to shift the question from, do I want to do this? To, okay, what is this actually trying to offer me? And being able to make the discernment then. And, I think negotiation is underrated. I always say, you have a choice, and my preference on some things are to negotiate. And although my spider negotiation didn't go exactly the way I wanted it, and it's in my throat anyway, the process of engaging with it helped me get clear on what I was actually receiving and why it was relevant for me. So, the way I look at it is sometimes you negotiate and you get what you ask for. And sometimes the energy moves in regardless and you have to work out the terms after the fact. But, that integration doesn't mean becoming something or adopting an identity, because none of these energies have become my framework or my label. They showed up. Some were welcome, some were resisted, some I negotiated with, but each carries something useful, symbolically, energetically, or both. And I use that to draw on them when it's relevant. But most of the time, I just leave them alone when it's not. I don't think about it much. So maybe you have a version of this that's your own. I mean, I'm not suggesting that everybody has bees in their nervous system or, has a snake situation that's pending. But I think most people have some version of this, like energies, patterns, or recurring experiences that keep showing up in ways that feel like more than coincidence. It's like an intuitive invitation or an energetic invitation that comes to the symbology of that pattern, that animal, that situation. And it might be something that you've always avoided or something you've always been drawn to, but it keeps coming into your life anyway. Or maybe it's a pattern or something that shows up in your dreams or keeps popping up in your creativity in a way that feels like it's trying to get your attention. And again, you do not have to build a system around it. It's just worth noticing to get curious about what this energy or symbolism might be offering, rather than look at it as an interruption. So that symbology, that has the qualities of that energy as a lens for something you might be working through. And so some of that symbology might be more indirect or cryptic, but some of it might be more direct. Some of it might be a real sense of support or a capacity that you didn't have before, but like you can call on it as a supportive of something that you would like to embody. Like the through line of all of this is the same one that runs through most of what I talk about on this channel, which is, guidance and support don't always come in the forms you would choose or that easy to see. So the ones that made you uncomfortable or you've resisted for a long time may also be ones that carry something worth receiving, or at least considering what they're showing you. You get to receive or not. You don't have to receive, but you can on your own terms, at your own pace, with your own discernment about what's actually for you. And that's actually what the practice is. It's always your choice. I'd love to hear about what keeps showing up for you that you haven't made peace with yet. Let me know in the comments. And if you would like some support with anything that keeps arriving uninvited or you're not sure what to do with, we can explore that in a session with your spirit team. And the link is in the description. Thanks for being here.